The regular meeting of the Fallbrook Union Elementary School District is now called to order. It is 5:31 p.m. Are there any comments regarding our closed session agenda items? And I believe the answer to that is no.
No, they're not.
We don't have any. In that case, we are adjourning into closed session. Would the board members please hit the leave button and then click onto the link that we were given earlier, which will get you right into the closed session, and then just reconnect when we're done. Thank you. And then we can go back into our meeting. Is Seth with us? He must.
Yep, we are now back here in live session.
Okay. All right, we are now reconvening the regular meeting of the board. We took no action during closed session. And now we can move to flag salute. Well, we might have to skip flag salute today because none of us are in the office. So we'll move into approving the minutes of our last meeting. And that would be our February 28th meeting. Do I have a motion to approve? Now we have to unmute our.
I move to approve.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Lieber. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Great, thank you, Mrs. Liebes. Any comments or corrections? No? Okay, then let's take our roll call. Mrs. Liebes?
Aye.
Mrs. Lieber?
Aye.
Mr. Favela?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well, and the minutes are approved. And now we move into community relations. Our board clerk is unable to be with us this evening, so Mrs. Liebes has graciously offered to take over that responsibility. Do we have any comments that have been?
We have one. We have one written comment. Shall I go ahead?
Okay, it's all yours.
This is from Brittany Treamer, topic masks in schools. The comment is, good evening, board. It has been a long 3 years of trying to live with and navigate this new virus, and today was the first day the children in this district were finally given the choice to wear or not to wear a mask in schools. It's sad that it took this long and countless hours of trying to stand up for all families to have the right to choose what is best for their children. Going forward, I hope the board will see this day as a new beginning, a day that this district can now see mask choice can be safe. I hope the children in this district will never have to be forced to cover their beautiful faces again. And if the topic of masks are to come up down the road, then I hope this board will see and understand parents should and always have a say on this matter. Since the masks now have been lifted on school campuses, does this mean the board will start to allow the community back in the building to attend board meetings? I do hope you all reconsider this. It's time to let the parents back in. Before, the threat was possibly parents wouldn't wear a mask and that there wasn't enough room to allow for the correct social distancing. So again, it's time to get life in this district fully back to normal. Open up your meetings. If you feel Zoom is best for some, then again, like I have stated in the past, allowing both options, Zoom and in person, it's time. One last comment I would like to address. I reached out to Dr. Candace Singh 2 weeks ago regarding masks, the stolen minute that occurred at the 2/7/22 meeting, and just trying to open up the dialogue for mask choice. I was told she was too busy to contact me back, even after I said an email or phone call would be fine. I'm disappointed that I couldn't even get the respect of a generic email stating that you at least saw my message. But nope, I got nothing. Just shows that this board unfortunately isn't willing to connect with parents that have different views than what this board has been trying to push the last 3 years. In ending, I hope this board will continue to understand the importance of parents standing up for their children and will willingly listen and try to work together instead of shutting them out and ignoring them. Thank you. That is all.
Thank you. Do we have any phone calls that are waiting as comments?
No, we do not.
Okay, all right. Then let's move directly to reports from the board. Mrs. Lieber, would you like to begin for us?
Wow. Let's see. Can you give me a hint of what we've done, Suzanne? Mrs. Levis. I know we have, let's see, Mrs. Libas and I both did Read Across America together at Live Oak School. And we had wonderful classroom engagement with some students. We were allowed to choose our own books. And I really enjoyed that opportunity to read to a class. And I'm shocked at how beautiful and well-behaved these children are. I mean, they came out of come out of a kind of a difficult 2 years, and they have just the best behavior. And then besides Read Across America, Mrs. Levis and I have both plan on participating in Legislative Week this coming week. We have 3 calls scheduled with our legislature to advocate for public education. Marie Walden, I can't remember actually my 3 right now. Mrs. Levis probably has them. And then we will be doing, I know Mrs. Levis has some fabulous plans for us, all of us, to participate in a program on planting at Los Ogueros, which we're all looking forward to. And that's pretty much my board report. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Lieber. Mr. Favela, would you give your report?
Sure. I was really glad to be able to visit San Onofre School in the past couple of weeks. We had we were received very well by the students there. I had a great program organized by Principal Perez there. Beautiful school there, and just really enjoy seeing what gets put into practice. You know, the decisions that we make here, how they get implemented. Great seeing the staff there that are so dedicated to their work. They, very much express how much, how much they enjoy what they do. Really glad to see that our students are in really good hands there. And also I had a chance to see part of the reclassification event that happened last week. It was, although it was virtual, it was organized very well. I felt that the event really gave the students and the families the recognition and the celebratory nature of the event that it deserves, even through a virtual means. It was great to hear about every student, great to hear from parents, the heartfelt messages, and it really is a tremendous occasion for students being reclassified. So really congratulate all the students, parents, and our district staff for putting together such a meaningful and great event. I'm really glad to be a part of that.
Thank you, Mr. Favela. Mrs. Libas?
Thank you. And thank you, Mrs. Lieber and Mr. Favela, for reminding me about the Read Across America and San Onofre. I didn't even have those on my list, but I also participated in those. And then also the reclassification event, which was so beautifully put together. And I agree, it was really well done. And I loved how personalized each student, they got to post something about their hobbies and things they liked, and then their family. And a lot of them had personal messages from staff, and you could see such beautiful support from each of the schools. And so that was a pleasure to participate in. And then, yes, today we just started the 2nd grade outdoor education field trips that the district has planned to Los Higueros in Fallbrook Land Conservancy volunteers are supporting. And we had Live Oak came out today, and I got to do leaf rubbings with the kids, and they hiked around and saw bunny rabbits and lizards. And we have an active hawk nest, which is really nice because it's very visible and easy for the kids to see. So they got to see the hawk and the male bringing food to the female on the nest. And we found a little songbird nest as well. And it's just a really beautiful time of year out there. Everything's in bloom. So thank you, Mr. Favela, for volunteering, and Mrs. Lundeen, and Mrs. Lieber is going to come out and visit, and hopefully Dr. Singh as well. So anybody else that wants to come out and go for a hike with us, it's the perfect time of year for it. And that's all I have.
Thank you. And thank you for helping us get involved with that program. I'm really looking forward to doing it next week. It should be terrific. I participated in 2 of the LCAP input meetings that we had last week. I know other board members were on those calls as well, because I remember seeing some of you in the meetings. I was at the Potter LCAP meeting and the Mary Faye Pendleton. They had principal, assistant principals, counselors, representatives at the Mary Faye Pendleton from the Military Spouse Association, and parents. Very good input, very good comments. Exciting to sort of see what the parents are most excited about what's going on in our schools. So that was terrific. I also participated in the reclassification event. 100 students reclassifying. That was a really large number. I remember last year it wasn't quite as large. Very impressive. And I agree with you, Susan. I love the way it's organized, because when you get to see the portfolios of each of the students, you see who's involved in their lives and what their hobbies are, and you know, who motivated them and what they're excited about. So it was great. And that's it for me. And I think we can move to Dr. Singh for your report.
Thank you, Mrs. Lundeen. Thank you, everybody. We so appreciate all of the work that you do for us as board members and all the things that you participate with us. This is like we start to ramp up on it being a super busy time of year. So we so appreciate it. And we know that you're all very busy outside in your own personal life and in your own work life. And we so are grateful for your participation in all the events that are happening now and are going to keep happening between now and the end of the year. But thank you for the commentary about our reclass ceremony. That's, for many of us, that's one of the most favorite things that we do all throughout the year. It really is a significant accomplishment for our students. And it is always so delightful to listen to the words of encouragement from parents and from teachers and their congratulatory comments to our kids. And I know it means a lot to them. So that was really a lovely event. And I just want to thank all of our staff. It takes a lot of people to put together an event like that and get all of those little, vignettes and recorded and uploaded and all of those things. And it takes a lot of time. So for all of our staff who were involved, I just wanted to extend my gratitude for that. And it's LCAP input season. So thank you for participating. And we're really looking forward. As you know, we really, really value and appreciate our parents and our staff's input into how the things we want to be working on next year for our LCAP. So thank you for your opportunity to participate in those. And Mrs. Norby, thank you to you and your team for leading those. It's a busy time and for our principals to be doing that. So we have a couple of presentations tonight on some really exciting things that are happening. So I'm going to stop there and we'll reserve the rest of the time for those things.
Thank you very much, Dr. Singh.
You're welcome.
We have a presentation this evening on the University of Laverne's Teaching Intern Program. And Dr. Singh, I think you can tell us a little bit about that.
I can. So we're going to start tonight with Mrs. Norby is going to do some explaining in some of the details, but down in our consent agenda tonight, we have an agreement that we're bringing to the board for approval with the University of Laverne, a partnership between our district and the University of Laverne. And I've been closely connected to the University of Laverne for many years. It's where I earned my doctorate. And this little idea that started out for a conversation between me and the dean to how do we really expand and grow the teacher pipeline in creative and important ways to increase teacher diversity and to bring folks into the teaching force that may not otherwise be able to be there, turned into this beautiful partnership. And due to the work of, as you know, this team, that helps put together and make things happen. That's where we are with lots of work that's been going on over the last several months. And we're so pleased to tell you more about it. Tonight is a presentation just as really giving some insight into, we bring contracts to you, as you know, for student teachers regularly with our universities. That's something that we do. We adore, as you know, having student teachers in our schools. It's such an important part of the way we train people and support people as they become teachers and get a teaching credential. This is really unique and different. So we wanted to spend some time in a short presentation for you to tell you more about the unique thing that we're going to be doing with Laverne, and we're really excited. So Mrs. Norby, thank you for preparing our presentation tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Singh. My pleasure. Thank you for giving us this opportunity, the governing board, to present to you, members of cabinet, Dr. Singh, and all of our members that are out in Zoom land. We hope that you are going to find this as exciting as Dr. Singh and I have been over the last few weeks as we've been planning and talking about it. So as Dr. Singh said, this is what we consider an exciting partnership between our district and the University of Laverne. All of you are very familiar with our LCAP. Goal number one of our LCAP and action number one, Seth, you can go ahead and switch my slide. Thanks. Goal number one, action number one. That's how important this particular goal is, to provide access to relevant, coherent, and rigorous standards-based instructional programs, of course, to increase in student achievement. The number one action to accomplish that goal is for our HR department to actively recruit highly qualified staff. It starts with the recruitment of excellent teachers. We know that the number one contributing factor to student success is the quality of the teacher in the classroom. And that's why it's goal number one, and that's why it's action number one. Unfortunately, as we move to the next slide, there are some barriers to this right now. We've been really fortunate in Fallbrook and many districts to have a very large teacher pool for which to choose from, to have many student teachers in our programs that we get to observe and then recommend for hire. We've had great substitute pools that we can see those teachers teaching, and then we have an opportunity to recommend them to interview in our district or to be hired in our district. We are in a national crisis right now. I know you hear about it, but we are seeing it in our schools. And that national crisis is we have fewer and fewer people going into this profession. Fewer college students pursuing a degree. Enrollment in colleges in the last decade is down 70% for teachers going into the teaching profession. We know that many universities don't even have enough to keep their programs open. We know that 8% of all teachers leave the profession each year, and the staggering statistic that has been pretty consistent is that 50% leave the profession within the first 5 years of entering into being a teacher. That all contributes to this teacher shortage. You've heard us talk about the substitute shortage. That is always the first place we start to see the teacher shortage coming. When we don't have enough subs, we know that we're not going to have enough teachers, because that's where the teacher pipeline starts. So we are definitely seeing that. You've heard us talk about that. Many districts have lowered their class sizes in order to meet the needs of the pandemic mitigations. That requires more teachers. So that lowers the amount that you, increases the amount you have to hire, but lowers the amount you have available. We are starting to see high attrition rates across the state, teachers leaving the profession, retiring, going into something else. And we also know that we have an increase in teacher retirements across not just our state, but all of the nation. One of the things that we are noticing here in Fallbrook is a shortage of teachers applying. We were shocked the other day when Mr. Morris announced to cabinet that we have only 29 applications right now for teaching positions, an application that's been open for a few weeks now. That's staggering. We typically have hundreds by the time we get ready to interview. So we certainly are hoping that that number will increase, and we have lots of efforts out there with job fairs and things to get that number up, but it's a concern for all of us. So the really good news about this, on slide number 4, you will see that the state also recognizes this is a problem, and they recognize that we need to be doing something about it. And they have dedicated over $1.5 billion to the California educator workforce, knowing that districts are going to have to do something in order to increase this number of potential teachers, or increase the different options in how you look at filling your teacher placements. So for Fallbrook, that's $1.3 million that has been given to our district that we must spend before 2026. And you can see there the exact reasons that money is being allocated. It is to promote educator equity, quality, and effectiveness. We want the very best teachers in front of our students, and we want teachers that reflect our community if and when at all possible. And then, of course, just supporting the coursework, that is an obstacle for many teachers. Many teachers do not go into the teaching profession because they can't afford to stop their day job, take classes to get a credential, and student teach for free. So this money is specifically targeted. The legislation specifically calls out that districts may use this money to help support the coursework, which would allow existing staff to become credentialed for an assignment. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a couple slides. So what exactly is a teacher intern program? That's your cue, Seth. It really is an opportunity, as Dr. Singh said, much like we do with student teachers. You partner with a university, the university provides them with their coursework, and then the district provides them with their practical or their practicum, their practical experiences. The main difference is that the teachers are allowed to take their courses simultaneously while they are teaching in the classroom. As I mentioned before, in order for a teacher to get a credential in a traditional format, they must quit their day job, they must then take courses, and they must do observations and different things for 9 weeks usually, and then they have a whole semester that they student teach every day in a classroom with a teacher. That requires that they then certainly can't work their day job, and that creates an obstacle for a lot of our teachers. If we look at the next slide, it actually will give you a little bit of a comparison between the two programs. The student teaching is certainly a more traditional pathway, but the intern program is becoming more and more common. I'm going to just pause here for a second to say that although it's becoming more common, it isn't new to the teaching profession by any means. In fact, I happen to know it existed 39 years ago because I was a teacher intern. So I was somebody who actually worked through UC Irvine and did all of my methods work and as an undergraduate, and then went and did simultaneously while I finished clearing my credential, working for the Irvine Unified School District. So it produces some pretty good people, I think. So that's a good news. But we have a lot of experience with it. We just haven't done it here in Fallbrook. We also use a lot of interns for speech and language pathologists, positions that have been hard to fill in the past. And as our teaching positions become harder to fill, I think you will see this more and more of an option. Both of them require that you have your bachelor's degree. Both of them require that you take your methods courses. As I mentioned before, the teaching intern one, although the education portion of it is about a year, it's a semester commitment for student teaching, where with the internship, you're committed to the entire year in your classroom. And then this is the main difference. A student teacher is placed in a classroom with a master teacher where they teach together, kind of a gradual release model. In an intern's position, they have their own classroom and they are hired by the district as a pseudo first year teacher. That could be concerning to some, and we'll talk about why this isn't a program for everybody and what type of a candidate we would be looking for. The other main difference is that, as I said before, the student teaching is a gradual release model, more direct supervision from a master teacher and more support given on a daily basis, where the teacher intern is required to have more independence and has less direct support. There are certainly supports embedded into the program, which we'll show you in a little bit, but they are a little bit different than a student teacher. Unpaid assignment, if you're a student teacher, if you're an intern, you actually do receive a salary because you're an employee of the school district. It's typically 85, anywhere between 50, 75, and 85, depending on the program, 85% of a starting teacher's salary with full benefits. Back 39 years ago, it was 50%. So we've increased that over the years, which is great to see. And then the tuition is usually paid by the student, but many universities offer a reduction if they are hired into one of these cohort models of which we're talking about. They will reduce the tuition for the student per unit. And then, as I mentioned on that 2 slides ago, where part of the money for the education effectiveness grant can be used to supplant the cost of tuition for those teachers that are going through this program in your cohort. And that's what we're proposing with our district program. Give me just a second here to catch up with you all. So as I said, this program is not for everyone. there's a certain personality that you're looking for, a certain level of maturity you're looking for, and typically a certain level of experience that you might be looking for. You want somebody who has been in a classroom doing something for quite a while, probably. This might be a special education aide who's been with us for 10 years. This might be somebody who has been on a campus and working maybe as a clerk, but then also did work in the classroom as well. So other typically classified employees. And we have every one of us as administrators or even teachers on our campus, we have all had people on our campuses that were like, you have got to get your teaching credential. You need to be a teacher. Our kids need teachers like you. We've all had those people we've wanted to mentor and tried to mentor. And they want to, but the barriers are too great for them. And usually it's a fiscal barrier that will not allow them to leave the money security of their job in order to take a risk and move into this type of student teaching, as well as the cost of the classes. So we also obviously want people that are confident, effective communicators. And I think the word I would use really is mature. You can't have somebody coming right out of college, although we have some that are very mature and those would be considered, but some of our students coming right out of college wouldn't meet this criteria. They just don't have enough experiences, life experiences typically, or classroom experiences. One of the things that we are most excited about with this is that it really allows us to diversify our teacher workforce and allows us to encourage and mentor existing staff members. These are people who we know. These are people who love our district and have been committed to our district for years. And we have an opportunity now to help them not just do better for themselves, but to do better for our students, because we know them. We know the training they've had. We know the type of personality they are. We know the commitment they have to our community. And that's, I think, what makes this really exciting for us. I would only add here that this is not, these aren't technically additional positions. These would be positions that we would be hiring a teacher for anyways. So it isn't like we're hiring additional teachers over and above what we would need. These would be openings, positions that we have that we believe one of these teachers would best fill. Okay, let's go ahead, Seth, sorry. So as I kind of started to think about, well, what might an example of one of these interns look like in our district? The best example I could come up with is maybe some of our special education aides, especially some of them that have been full-time for a while. Our special education aides, they work under the direct supervision of a teacher, certainly, but they have a lot of responsibility. They are working with small groups of students. They are implementing, they're not just supervising behaviors, they are implementing instruction. They are helping a teacher analyze the data and make changes to the lesson or make changes to the behavioral interventions. They really are kind of teachers in a classroom alongside a teacher, not just following that teacher, but with extreme autonomy. In addition, those teachers have had extensive district training. We've invested already a lot of money and time into these people, and they know what our expectations are. They understand our culture. They understand who we are as a district. That you don't get when you just hire somebody who's brand new and coming in for an interview. So these are all kind of examples of why this particular position might be good for the right person. As I said, it doesn't come without support. So just because they're in their own classroom, it doesn't mean that they are left there to sink or swim. First of all, we get to choose who we hire. So we're not going to hire people who we don't believe are going to be successful. And they're going to come with some very strong recommendations. We've already asked our principals to be thinking of, if this partnership goes through, who might be people on your campus that you would strongly encourage to apply for this type of an internship. The district has a liaison that is responsible for working with each of the teachers and then being a liaison back to the supervisor at the university. In addition, they have a cooperating teacher, much like they have a master teacher in the same classroom. They do have a cooperating teacher that they are partnered up with for the year that helps them, supports them, meets with them, models lessons for them, works with lesson planning and design for them. So they have somebody who's working right alongside them. Certainly their principal is of support and provides feedback to them. They do attend summer courses before taking their classroom, especially in behavior management. That's one of the first ones. And then on equity and inclusion, those are the two courses that they recommend they take before they start. In addition to that, they have a university supervisor who comes and does observations with them twice a week for the first 5 weeks, then every week for the rest of that semester. And then the second semester is regular observations, depending on what that specific intern might need in terms of supervision as we move into the second part of the semester. So this is more just a little bit about how the partnership works. The university does require a cohort of 10. I will tell you that most districts, there are many districts that Laverne is partnering with this next year for this. Most districts, it's because of the universal TK and the lowering of the TK age. Most districts are having to hire a large number of teachers in order to provide TK at their school sites. So many districts are using this program for that. And they have a specific program just for early education for our teachers. But you have to have 10 teachers. They enroll in a credential program with the university. I indicated that the university usually reduces their rate of their tuition. And then what we are proposing is that FUESD would cover the remainder of that tuition for them. And I'll cost that out for you in just a little bit. I've already talked about the master teacher and the liaison. And then we are working with our legal counsel to come up with a commitment, if you will, that they will commit to a minimum of 3 years of teaching with us if we have paid for their education, and the specifics of that are still being worked out. But that's a common MOU that districts have with people who you provide education for. So the cost of the program, it is 85% of a first-year teacher's salary with their benefits, which is listed there for you, $65,000. But what I want to remind you of is we would already be paying a salary for that teacher. If we don't hire an intern, we have to hire another teacher to fill that classroom. This isn't an addition. And Mrs. Martin reminded me numerous times of this. We don't typically hire teachers that are step one and have no experience. We have some, but most of our teachers come to us with experience. They are much more expensive than the cost of a teacher. So this is 85% of that, which is $65,000. I do have listed at the bottom of that slide how much the first year step one teacher is, $75,000. But as Mrs. Martin reminds us, typically they're more than that. Their tuition and materials is about $19,000. And then we would commit to giving their on-site cooperating teacher a stipend that is equivalent to what we pay our BITSA support providers who work with our student teachers. And that's $1,000 stipend, in addition to the little amount that the university would give them for being a cooperating teacher, which I think is about $300 or so. So although it sounds like it's $85,000, it's really not, right? Because we would have already been paying that. So really the cost to us is the difference between those two. So it's looking like about $20,000 or so dollars, between $10,000 and $20,000, $10,000 for each intern that we have. If that math makes sense to you, about $10,000 after you subtract everything out of what we would be paying anyways. I think $10,000 is a pretty cheap investment. I think that if we know that we're getting the very best out there and the ones that are who have a commitment to our district and that we know and that we can make a difference in their life, I think that's a cheap investment, which then brings me to the next slide, which is one of our 7 habits is think win-win. This program is a win-win. First of all, we get to pick the people. So if we don't have good people, we're not going to pick people who we don't thinking we're going to be successful. So it's a win for our own people that we have classified staff that we have the ability to make a difference for. Dr. Singh, I think, said it so beautifully when we were hashing this all out, and that we have the potential to change the trajectory of people's lives, people who might not otherwise enter into the profession, people perhaps of color or that wouldn't be able to stop what they're doing and do this, people who maybe are older and can't stop their teaching stop their working because they have a family to take care of. So a variety of reasons. So that's a win for them. It's a win for us because we get the best of the best and people that we know. And that's a win for our kids. So I really believe, as I think about this, it's an exciting opportunity. And I think that it's, as Dr. Singh always does, it's a way to get ahead of the crisis and not wait until 2 years from now when we really are in crisis and we really can't find teachers, that we're scrambling to form these partnerships, and universities are already partnered with other districts and already offering. So I just always so appreciate Dr. Singh's forward thinking and ability to think past the moment and the now and make these opportunities happen for our kids. So with that, that ends my presentation. And I just remind you that together we all make a difference for our kids. It's no one person or one department, it's all of us. And I appreciate having this opportunity to share this program with you. And certainly if you have any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Well, I want to say, Mrs. Norby, you have converted me from a skeptic to a cheerleader of this program. I was really concerned when I read intern and, you know, that it would be somebody who hadn't completed their coursework. But as Dr. Singh explained, the type of person you'd be looking for this program. And I can already think of, you know, 5 people off the top of my mind in our schools who would be perfect for this. And I hope a lot of our staff will take advantage of this because we need them.
We need them.
Thank you.
Yeah. I also want to congratulate you on resurrecting a program that off and on throughout the educational history has been an effective way to bring teachers into the program that cannot afford the luxury of being a non-income producing person for that length of time. And the nice thing is that you get a whole new student that is really usually fabulous. Just like you are, Mrs. Norby. I don't know if you would have entered the profession without that support. And look what a great trajectory your career has taken you on, and what a blessing you've been to education. My only thought is, could we use any of these funds, since we're looking at potentially experienced older adults, not just coming right out of high school, to support them for childcare?
We can certainly check into that. I know it speaks specifically to the units and the materials, but I'm not sure about the other. But Mrs. Martin can help us with that too.
Okay, because I do think that could be an obstacle for some more mature older adults. They don't want to leave their kids, and they could be, you know, fabulous candidates that they just need this little extra support during this time period. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Norby, I just wanted to say that when I first heard about this, I just thought it was the best idea ever. It really takes into account the reality for a lot of people. I know when I was in college, that was a constraint for me. I was self-supporting, and to be able to take advantage of anything after that was only possible because I got a scholarship. Hence, you know, student interns who get paid at teacher rate. So I think it's a brilliant idea. Did I understand you to say that we need to have a minimum of 10, but can we have more than 10?
Well, part of it is how many openings do we have? Because remember, these would be existing positions,
That's
not
true.
additional positions. So some of it is a staffing, and we're in the process of doing that now, and people are putting in their paperwork for transfers or leaves or retirements or whatever. So part of it is a staffing issue.
Yeah, okay, good point.
Okay, well, thank you.
Sounds
And I'll
great.
see you in a few minutes for another presentation. You're not done with me yet.
Okay, thank you so much, Mrs. Norby. That moves us to board operations. We have an action item. The first action item is the CSBA Delegate Assembly election. We have, we may vote for 9 candidates out of the group that we were given. Let's see, 2, 4, 12. And so I'm not sure how you would like to proceed, if there are candidates that we want to present and see if we have agreement on. Honestly, I can't remember how we did this last year, so
This is always a tough one because when you read through their resumes, they all look great. They're all school board members who obviously care a lot about their districts and students and public education. So I think usually we try to just kind of rule a few out and then vote for all of the rest. So because we can only vote for 9 and there's 12, we would have to rule out 3 of them. And when I looked through, there were a couple that I definitely would want, the 2 from our neighboring districts at Vista and Oceanside, Julie Kelly and Eleanor Evans. I would definitely want to support them. And then I thought there were 3 or 4 from, was it National City, from one school district, that I thought was kind of a lot to have one school
Right.
district. And 2 of them had only been on their board for a year, Michelle Gates and Rosina. I didn't write down her last name. So I was thinking they maybe not vote for them and just go for the 3rd. And then there was Lucy, somebody who also had only been on their board for a year. So those were the 3 I was thinking I would not have as much support for. But other than that, I don't know anything about any of these people.
Good logic, though. Because I think what I do remember about last year, where there were a couple of districts where more than one candidate came from that district. And when you have this sort of a great slate of candidates, that's a good way to cut back. Any other input from Mrs. Lieber, Mr.
Yeah.
Fatella?
I did the same thing. I read through all the resumes. I felt Lucy was too new. I felt the National City, we should just vote for one. And I recommend Maria Benacourt, Cassandra as the one we would want to vote for. And then I have a list already written out. So, but I think elimination is actually a little easier because then we just can approve the slate. So I agree with taking out Lucy. I agree with taking out the 2 other National City candidates. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Michelle Gates and Rosina Luziaga and Lucy Ugarte are the 3. Mr. Favela, your thoughts?
Sure, that all sounds good. Definitely inclined to having some North County representation. So that was one factor I looked at. One that also I think we should not include would be Marco Amaral. There's some issues of concern there happening at the moment. So that would be one to rule out.
Okay.
Interesting. I had Marco down as but you might know something. Was there anything you read in his resume or is this additional information?
It's additional information, yes.
Okay, because I was interested in what Marco's done, but I could just call him and ask him. But I love the fact, and I don't even know what it means, modernize the electrical grid for global warming. What does that mean? But they've done it. And it seems like a progressive district. They've got an ethics studies policy, and I guess they're the first one to have done that. So I had written down a few pluses for him, but I will go with your recommendation, Mr. Favela.
Thank you.
If we were to eliminate Mr. Marco Amaral, then we would just need to take 2 others off the list. What about taking off the 2 other individuals who are from National and then keeping on Chula Vista? What about that thought?
Yeah, you're saying keep Lucy. Lucy,
Yeah.
She's new, but you think, the nice thing about Lucy is that she's a teacher and it is an elementary. It is a K-8, I believe. So she would represent our similar needs. And she is a board president, even though she's only been on. So I agree with you. I'm good for keeping Lucy.
Okay. All right. So that means candidate number 2, number 3, and number, no, let me get this right. Number 1, candidate number 1, candidate
one
number
has been
4.
eliminated.
One is eliminated, right? I'm going to just read through the eliminations. Candidate number 1 eliminated, candidate number 4 eliminated, and candidate number 8 eliminated. And so specifically it would be Marco Amaral eliminated, Michelle Gatos, and Rosino Lizaraga. Those were the three that we would take off our list. Is that correct? Everybody? And then those who would stay on would be Maria Betan, I'm sorry. Maria Betancourt Castaneda, Eleanor Evans, Humberto Guzman, Claudine Jones, Julie Kelly, Guy Wamo, Tamara Otero, Marla Streech, and Lucy Goddick.
That sounds right.
All right. I'll make that motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any other comments? All right, let's start with you, Mrs. Lieber,
Aye.
and Mr. Favela,
Aye.
and Mrs. Liebus,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. So those are the candidates that we select. Excellent. Now we move to the new and updated board policies and board bylaw. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion, questions, comments? Okay, we're ready for a vote. Mrs. Liebus,
Aye.
Mrs. Lieber,
Aye.
Mr. Favela,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. Third item is resolution number 21-21/22. Resolution to change the date of the June 20th, 2022 regular board meeting. As we know from the information that's been provided, that day is now a holiday. And so we are recommending that we move it to the 21st, the following day, which would be a Tuesday. Do I have a motion to do that?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. A second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any comments, questions, discussion?
You know, it's always my concern that we try to stabilize our board meetings. So I really don't like seeing us doing this, but I know, of course, none of you do. I just think in the future, if this Monday problem continues, we really should consider how we can stabilize our board meetings to one day all year. That's my only comment.
Thank you, Mrs. Cooper. Yeah, there are some holidays that do come up every once in a while, trip us. All right, the motion's been made. Are we ready for a vote? Yes. Mrs. Liebus,
Aye.
Mrs. Lieber,
Aye.
Mr. Favela,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. All righty, now we move to an action item for administration, out-of-state travel. Ed Leader 21 Spring Superintendent Summit. Do I have a motion to approve?
A motion.
Thank you, Mr. Favela. Do I have a second?
I'll
I'll
second.
second.
Thank you. Any questions, discussion, comments?
Are you presenting, Dr. Singh, or are you attending as a to listen?
Actually, one of the very first times I'm actually not presenting, which will be a beautiful thing to just get to be a participant and a learner and not running from place to place, which I don't do very often. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity to attend.
Sounds terrific. All righty. Are we ready for a vote? All right.
Yes.
Mr. Favela,
Aye.
Mrs. Liebus,
Aye.
Mrs. Lieber,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. Thank you. Now we get to the second interim report. So excited to hear this presentation. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a
I
motion.
move to approve.
And do we have a second?
A second.
Thank you. Okay. And Mrs. Norby, will you be doing a presentation for us this evening?
Mrs.
Oh,
Martin.
what am I saying, Mrs.
Mrs.
Norby?
Martin.
I'm looking at Mrs. Martin and I'm saying Mrs. Norby. Okay, sorry about that.
Well, Mrs. Norby has the bulk of the presentations and she does such a fabulous job that I'm sure she could do this one for me, but she has another one after me. So I'm going to attempt to share my screen, which I've never done before, so bear with me. Let me see here. And let me put in,
Well done.
there we go. Okay. Good evening, board members, Dr. Singh and cabinet, and those that are participating with us also virtually. It is truly my pleasure to be able to present to you on our second interim report. I know that these aren't always exciting reports, but thank you, Ms. Lundeen, for your enthusiasm in looking forward to this presentation. I'm showing for you something that you've seen already, but just to show you where we are with our 21-22 budget timeline. And so we are now at the second interim, which is the final reporting on this year's budget alone. As you can see, we'll start the process again in June when we bring you our 2022-23 budget. So you can see the cycle kind of just continues. It seems as though it never ends and the years sometimes overlap. What is the second interim report? This probably looks familiar to you, but I felt like it worked last time to hopefully explain it. So I kept the similar format here. The second interim report is the second report that districts are required to make, and it is all of our financial activity through January 31st. So if you recall, our first interim was everything as of October 31st. This is now as of January 31st. And one of the most important pieces to note is that FUESD has a positive certification. To the best of my knowledge and recollection, we've always had a positive certification. So this continues, but this means that we'll be able to meet all of our financial obligations this year and in the 2 subsequent fiscal years. I will go over for you the revenue changes, and you can see we talked about this just briefly at prior board meetings. There's a lot more money that's come in and some of it we were aware of it and some of it we weren't, which is always good news. You can see federal revenues have increased almost $3 million since October 31st. One of the significant pieces is the Emergency Connectivity Fund. And thank you to Mr. Fell, who pursued this, and it's almost $500,000 to reimburse our district for things that we had already done to ensure that our families, our communities had access during COVID with Wi-Fi's and Chromebooks. So this is truly an additional nearly $500,000. We received additional impact aid funding, which we typically do, but we never know when it's going to come and how much it is. And that was about $900,000. And then we received additional Medi-Cal funds, and we had carryover in some of our categorical, our restricted programs that were posted there. So we knew those things, but that's a lot of money. And it's good news. It's great news, because this is what helps us when we talk about maximizing our revenues. This is what helps us to be able to plan and to do some of the great work that we've presented to you in the past and that we'll be making future presentations on. Our state revenue is also up significantly, almost $4 million. And the big pieces of that are the expanded learning opportunity grant that Ms. Norby is going to talk about, the educator effectiveness grant that she also shared with you previously, that $1.3 million. And then we've received some funds that Mrs. Blinko Martinez, our special ed director, pursued for special ed purposes related specifically to COVID, alternative dispute resolutions and learning support. And those are also about $600,000 between the 2 programs there. And then we do have our local revenue of almost $5,000, but that is donations that the district receives, mainly in the form of PTA, but we have received some other donations from community members and businesses who are very supportive of our district. On the expense side, you can see there's the significant changes, $2.4 million. That was the salary settlements for our classified and certificated bargaining units, the 5% increase, as well as the contribution, the increased district contribution to the health insurance. So you can see those 2 amounts there. Those were already planned for when you approved, and actually when you authorized the amount for negotiations, this was already accounted for. But it's now being reflected in the second interim because we actually had to make those budget changes to show the expenses there. In addition, there were a couple of new positions. We had a new special ed program assistant and a new special education specialist, a teacher that was approved, I believe, at the last board meeting. And in addition, what's included in this second interim report is the director of expanded learning, which Mrs. Norby is going to talk to you about in greater detail in her presentation. But we've included that position in there because of the funding is also included in the second interim. And then what I call extra duty from new revenue sources, many of the sources of new funds provide for professional development or extra teacher hourly, for different support. So that gets built in. It's not really a position, but it's still a salary cost that we account for there. You see supplies showing almost a $3 million increase, but I just want to be clear on this. It's kind of a placeholder budget. Before we allocate out the entire grant, we kind of keep it in this supplies account so we know where it is, but we need to budget for the entire amount. So it's not truly a $3 million increase in just supplies, although some of it will remain there. But as we spread and allocate the budgets out to where it's actually going to go, we will do adjustments to move this money around. And you can see some additional $152,000 for services, and this is really for the DODEA grant and the TUPE grant, the carryover we have there. Other outgo, without getting too technical there, there's been a change at the state level for how we can account for some of the support that we provide for our child nutrition program. So this is actually an increased expense. They consider it to the district, but 66,000 is a number worth mentioning to you. You're probably familiar with this slide. I like to keep it consistent because you can always go back and compare. Our reserves should be almost $3 million, and you can see that we have a reserve of 5.7 million or 5.91%. And this is more than 1% increased from our first interim. Our first interim, we had, I believe it was 4.72 as the reserve in the general fund, but we've increased that there. And primarily it's due to the additional impact aid and the grant that Mr. Fell pursued for that $500,000, kind of just goes to the bottom line there. In our special reserve fund, you can see that we still have our COVID response contingency. Again, that's also what we call our planning account. And I expect that as we close the books, you hear my favorite phrase, maximizing our revenues. But as we close the books, that $2.7 million is going to increase. There's already things that we're working on that will really free up some of our general fund money. So Mrs. Lieber, like you suggested with the childcare, it may not be something that we can directly charge to that program. However, there are other things that we can charge and free up general fund money to do some of these things in support of. So we always try to maximize our revenues to give the district the most flexibility. Here's the summary. Remember that the second interim is a snapshot as of January 31st. We do have a positive certification, almost a 6% reserve in our general fund. And you can see almost $2.8 million contingency in our special reserve fund. And then next steps. We are working on, as you've already mentioned, some of you have participated in the LCAP input meeting. So we are working on the preparation of the 2022-23 LCAP alongside with the budget. The May revision is going to be coming out soon, where the Department of Finance reviews the governor's proposals that were made back in January. They do updates to the state's revenues and expenses. And behind the scenes, there's lots of negotiations going on with the legislature as far as how these things are going to turn out in the final budget. And then in June, we will be bringing to you the 2022-23 LCAP and budget for adoption. And I believe that is the end of my presentation. I know it was kind of quick there. However, you've all been so receptive and understanding, and hopefully with your continued support, these types of things, although they're big dollar amounts, they truly are, we're able to do so much for our families in the community and the students. And under Dr. Singh's leadership and guidance, as Mrs. Norby already mentioned, but I have to reiterate her thinking, her forward thinking, and the innovative ideas, and just kind of not being limited, alongside with the work that everyone does to implement the programs, and then behind the scenes, the work that we do to free up these resources so that we have the funds available to do it. It's just such a winning combination, and I'm so proud to be part of this district. I was at a meeting this morning with other people from other districts, and just kind of listening. Wow, I couldn't be more thrilled and more proud of the work that's done here. So are there any questions?
I just have one question. First, I totally agree with you. Our district is just humming along. I think Dr. Singh and all of you understand how this money can be implemented to the best advantage of our district. And not all districts, I don't think, have their head wrapped around how effectively they can use their funds. And I think we're hitting the ground running. My only comment on that presentation is there were a couple acronyms that I don't understand. One was, I believe, DAC. So possibly in the future, we could use the full name once and then use the acronym afterwards. I think everybody understands LCAP by now, but there were a few acronyms that I just, not terribly important, but.
No, I appreciate that feedback. Usually I do that. I just, in my trying to use what we already had, just kind of skipped over that. What I can do though is also have Dr. Singh provide you a hard copy of this presentation. And in that, I'll make sure to spell out anything that has acronyms in it so that we're clear on it. But thank you for that.
It was a beautiful presentation. Tiny, tiny little request. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? It was another Cindy Martin perfect presentation. Thank you. I do like them. I like the financial presentation, especially because they have good news. I mean, if we were in a different situation in the district, I might not like the presentations quite as much. But we've always had such exciting news about how creatively we manage our money, and always keep in mind the students and what best supports their learning. So you make it really easy for us to do things like approve the budget. So do we have a motion? We can have a vote. Mr. Favela?
Aye.
And Mrs. Lieber?
Aye.
And Mrs. Liebes?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well, and the motion carries. Thank you. We now move into educational services and a presentation on expanded learning opportunities. Dr. Singh, would you like to lead us there?
Yeah, well, I'm so pleased, again, to, as you just mentioned, we have had so many sources of money, as you know, coming toward us. And this expanded learning opportunity program or grant from the state of California is something that has been really prioritized from the governor's office to provide expanded learning, expanded day, or extended year opportunities for students. And we've been thinking really carefully about how to best use this money to truly expand what we're already doing. There are so many things happening for kids, but of all the things that you, our governing board, you've been dreaming of and talking about, and the ways that we could extend the day and extend the year for the kids, we have a fund that's set up to do it. And we're in the initial stages of thinking through what that might look like. So Mrs. Norby is going to talk with you, share with you what the parameters are of this particular state program. And then as I talked to all of you and sent you some information through the email, we have a first reading of a job description for a new director's position that we need to oversee this massive effort. So Mrs. Normie's gonna talk about that maybe a little bit at the end to try to combine this, but we're really thrilled in how we can use this source of money to support students before and after school and during the time in between sessions. And we think it's going to be bringing great things to our community in a lot of ways, great things for our kids. So Mrs. Normie, thank you for helping all of us get the background on this program.
Absolutely, Dr. Singh. So I've been in education a long time, and I agree with you, Mrs. Lundeen. It's a lot more fun when there's money to spend than when you're cutting budgets. And I've been in those situations too. And this is way more fun. And this is one of those opportunities that I am so excited to be a part of before I leave, that it just brings me such joy. So let's get started. You can go ahead and go to slide number 2. I just love this little girl. She is how I feel about this program. And she is how I think our kids are going to feel about this program. And she is how I have no doubt you all are going to feel about this program as we move forward over the next year or so as we plan this. So I just love her. So what is expanded learning? It is a very specific fund that has been provided for schools to do just this, to expand the school day and expand the school year. It is being recognized everywhere that our kids need support. They need academic support. They need interventions. We know that. We've been given lots of money for that. But we know equally important is that we need to bring kids together in social situations with capable adults to provide them other types of interventions, things that are maybe more around social emotional or maybe more interest driven, hands-on and engaging, so that they come back to school and see school as a fun place. They see learning as a fun thing, that they want to come to school, they want to engage on their school campus in a supportive environment where they're allowed to then engage with their peers in something different than just a reading circle or a math lab. And this money is specifically dedicated for that reason. And it's so nice to have this. These are programs that we all dream of having for our kids and wish we could have all the time, but we just haven't had the funding necessary to do it. And now we do. I want to just say that not only is the state recognizing this, but our parents are asking for this without even knowing that it's coming. I think that a couple of you were on the Mary Fay community input for the LCAP last week, and we had parents asking for exactly these things. Wouldn't it be great if we could do like clubs after school, or we could have a gardening club, or we could have, my boy got to participate in the intervention program for academics, and he's doing so well now, but I want him to come to school and do something really fun and engaging. And I gave them a little sneak peek and told them to all come and watch the board meeting tonight, because we think we have an answer for that. So there's a need for it, and our parents recognize it, as do our educators, and now the state, which is great. So how much money are we talking? Cue the next slide. Inquiring minds want to know. We were given $1.9 million this school year to spend. Now, this isn't just for, we can use it for a lot of different things, and we have, and we're using some of it, but nowhere near the amount that we've been allocated, because this takes some really thoughtful planning, which we'll talk a little bit about. But I think more importantly, as Dr. Singh mentioned, this is a commitment by the governor. This is one of his passion projects, if you will, of something that he believes very strongly in. In his proposed budget, it is looking as if our district, just our district, could receive $5.7 million every year for the next 4 years. So, I mean, this is a lot of money coming into a district for these reasons. So you know, obviously it pays for staff, but the idea is that these programs are offered to children free of charge. So the program helps to pay for those. We want children to be able to take advantage of these opportunities. So, and because our district does have a large unduplicated pupil count, that is why that number is so much higher than what some districts might be. I mean, they recognize that these types of programs really need to be given to our children who are coming to our schools that might not have the same opportunities as children in other districts. So a large amount of money, which I think then only emphasizes the fact that it has to be very thoughtfully planned for, or it just won't have the same impact. It has endless possibilities, which is what I am so excited about. We could sit here and dream for hours and days of all the things that we want to do. And we have already begun to do that. And as I told you, our parents are already starting to do that. I think there's this comment through the legislation is that if it doesn't say you can't do it, you can with this particular funding. They really have tried to make it as flexible as possible, as long as you follow the major guidelines that go with it. But these are things that could be in the summer. In addition to our summer bridge, we could run summer camps. We could have a company come in and do a theater camp for us, or a company come in and do a sports camp, or whatever we can dream up. So anything in your summer, you can do it there. Remember, this is extended day. It has to be outside of the regular school day or the regular school year. So anything that you're paying for during the school day is coming from a different fund, but anything outside of that. It could be academic related. So maybe it wouldn't be the same type of a reading intervention program we're doing now, because it has to complement what we're doing. But certainly, and if you're having teachers teach it, it's going to have an educational academic component to it. So we used to run a program in my past district called the Enrichment Summer School. It was all based on basic summer skills, but they were all theme oriented, and kids got to sign up for them, and they loved them. And teachers just embedded the academics into it. It can be any type of an enrichment program. As we said, it could be interest-based. And one of the things I'm most excited about is the opportunity to weave in some social emotional types of camps or programs for our students. And I'll share some of the initial thinking around that. We can do it for after school. So in addition to our intervention programs that we're running now, we could do an after school enrichment program. And another one that I think our parents were very excited about is the concept of intercession. So that might be the February break, or the Thanksgiving break, or one of the weeks at Christmas time, the winter break. So that maybe people who need daycare, this would be an option for them if their parents are still working during that week. And again, an opportunity to bring children onto our school campus in an innovative, fun, and engaging manner. So this door on the left is actually the door in my office. This is what I look at every day when I walk in and out of my door. And it says dream big on top of it. And that's what this program is going to allow us to do, is to dream big. When you have that much money, you really can provide something of extreme quality for our students and for our staff, and can really enhance and enrich the academic program that we are already providing. So dream big, but be thoughtful about it. We don't want to be wasteful. We want to make sure that it's done in a very thoughtful and a way that really maximizes the resources that we have. Very strategic, that's the word I was looking for. So some of the ideas that we just have been kicking around, and obviously we're going to be getting input on all of these, and my next slide kind of talks about that. But some of the ideas that we've just been talking about in conversation is, from an academic standpoint, it might be STEM projects or project-based learning, that maybe a group comes together and does a 3-week project that's something real world and real life, and has to do with our environment. Coding, robotics. Math Olympiad would have been a perfect example of an enrichment program that took place after school. Speech and debate, book clubs, reading tutors. I mean, there's just, you name it, it could be anything. These were just, the number of dots I had was only 6 for each square. The arts is the other area that they really want us to be considering, because the arts have not been part of the school day for many students. Bringing back band, a choral music program, dance, theater, the same things that Luminary Arts is providing for us. We could contract with them or another company to do camps for us at each of our schools in the summer or during intercession. It doesn't have to be our own students, our own teachers. And I will tell you, there is a business opportunity out there right now. And we are starting to get the emails already. People are developing programs and companies to help districts do this, because it will require staffing. Animation, photography, so just some ideas. And then the social emotional one, really doing some character development types of things, doing social skills, teaching them in a fun way with social stories and play acting, and some great ideas. Stress management, boy, wouldn't that be wonderful if you could maybe have a little stretching class or a mindfulness class, or working on centering yourself and learning strategies to reduce your stress in an anxiety-ridden stage. Leadership opportunities, and then anything interest-based. We have the ability to look at our Thrively assessments and see what our students are wanting and what they are good at and what they want to know more about. So it's endless. The possibilities are just endless, which is what makes it so exciting. So we've kind of thought about this in 3 phases. This is that adage about, you're kind of building the plane while you're flying it. That's a little bit of what this is, because it's a new program, it's new funding, and we've never really had anything like this. But in order to do that, you want to make sure that you have the right people on that plane as you are flying and building. A project of this magnitude is going to require a person dedicated to it. This is not something that we could put on our principals' plates and say, develop these at your school sites. It's not something that people in the Ed Services Department could take on top of what they're already doing. They could do it, but it wouldn't be to the scale that we're looking for. So the first thing that we're recommending in phase 1 is to hire a director to oversee this program, and it's on their worry list. It's on their list of things that they're focused on. It is what they are dedicating their time and energy to. This person would coordinate, beginning with right away, coordinate and assume responsibilities for all the things we already have in progress. Get that off somebody else's plate so that they can focus on the other work that we have, specifically as it relates to after-school programs that we already have, and Summer Bridge, the summer program that we currently ran last year and are planning on running this year. And I could even see that this person might be thinking about how to tweak that in some other different ways than we've been able to offer in the past. The next phase of this that would happen, maybe not simultaneously, but very quickly thereafter, once this person is on board, is really to start to determine what is the interest out there for the different types of programs, what do they look like, and getting input. So certainly it's coming organically through our LCAP process, but I think that through our school site councils, through our Thrively surveys, through student forums, we want to hear the student voice. What are you looking for? Certainly our governing board, our principals, our teachers. What do you think would best support and complement our academic program that we offer during the day? And then of course, this person would be looking at our data. So yes, we want it to be input driven, but we also want it to be data driven. What does our data tell us? What does our SEL data tell us might be good little mini sessions to offer for our kids? Maybe it's on grit, maybe it's on calming strategies. We don't know yet. We would want to look at our data. And then our academic data. Of course, we know that reading and mathematics are important, but are there other ways that we could weave that in with kids not even really knowing that that's what they're doing? So in a little different way than what we currently have. And then I think the most important part of this job and this director's scope of work is really going to be starting to develop the partnerships and researching the programs that meet the needs of our students and our community and the governing board and our teachers. And what are some options for us before and after school? What are some different things that we could be doing in the intersession that would attract our students to want to come? And of course, during the summer, which is our longest time we don't have our students, that we can extend our school year. So this person's job will be to develop those partnerships and research those programs and make sure that they're meeting the needs of our students. So our next steps, tonight's the first step, kind of educating everyone about what the program is and the funding, and then having a first reading for the job description. I will tell you that we are not the only ones on this train right now. I am thrilled that we are amongst the first who have it on our job postings that we're beginning to look at, because other districts are in the process of doing the same thing. When we started looking out there are many job postings for Director of Expanded Learning Opportunities, because every other districts have this funding too and want to do the best job they can. So then the second reading would be at our next board meeting, which would then allow us to go ahead and post that position. We have made a decision to post that in-house only and opening it up to all of our principals I paused there because right now you're all going, wait, that means we're going to lose a principal. Yes, and that does. It's a wonderful opportunity for growth for one of our own. They'll have an opportunity to apply, each of our principals, if that's something of interest to them. We are not in the business of trying to upend a school in the middle of the school year and trying to disrupt their program. So we will work very closely with the principal. We think in the beginning, it'll be kind of a split assignment with maybe some backfilling of a substitute administrator if we need at the school. So the principal would be at the school site as well as then down at the district office a couple days a week to help us get this program moving and forward. But at least for the spring. Remember, the main spring part of this job is getting ready for summer, which we have a pretty good handle on, but it will be nice to have somebody else have that as their primary responsibility. And then, of course, once that person is selected and the year starts to wind down, then we'll look at backfilling that principal position, and hopefully with one of our assistant principals, but we don't know, which means then, of course, it's a domino effect, right? So we're prepared to do that. But it's, again, as I said at the beginning, a really exciting opportunity for our district on a lot of levels. And I was thinking I might come back and apply for it, Dr. Singh. Sounds good.
Wait a minute. I think there's a lot of us who are thinking, wait, this sounds like a really great job.
Yeah, this sounds like a really great job.
It sounds like a really fun job. I think
A really fun
some
job.
of our board members might think they want to maybe have this job.
Yeah, a lot of fun, a lot of opportunity. I'm sorry, Mrs. Lieber.
No, I was just saying, I want this job. I agree. Everybody, this is a fun job.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that, if anybody has any questions or comments, I'd be happy to entertain them now.
I do have a couple questions. This can be in a before and after school program. Can it also be at lunch?
I don't believe so. I think that we could tweak some other funding to help with that, and this person could certainly help us create those programs. But I mean, there's no reason why it couldn't be at lunch. That kids are already there, because the idea is to provide them with opportunities. We just couldn't pay for people to come on the campus at lunch out of this fund. It has to be outside of the school day. I would guess that lunch is considered the school day. But one of the things that we talked about at the Mary Fay Pendleton coffee and input meeting was that they could do lunchtime clubs. You know, we could bring back lunchtime clubs, and this position could help support those and could help bring in resources for them, and because they're going to have those community connections. So I think it definitely, the lunchtime opportunities were very much of interest to the parents.
Mhm.
This is 1.9 million that has to be spent out in this school year.
No, we actually have quite a while to spend it. They recognize this money was given to us very quickly. And we didn't even have to have a plan for it right away, which was kind of remarkable. But the funding actually does not have to be spent, and I think it's delayed by 1 year, and then it all has to be done by the year 25-26. Is that correct, Mrs. Martin? Maybe you could fill me in on that. I just get to do the fun stuff. She has to worry about the money.
Yes, Mrs. Norby's correct. And this is a little bit different than the typical grant. This is really where the state is recognizing the need, giving us the money, saying what we need to do to keep the money, because there's districts that are going to receive this money, and if they don't implement by the 2026, then they'll have to pay it back. So recognizing that they gave us a significant amount of money this year with not a lot of time to plan and implement, it's actually not even going to be audited this year, which is great because of the recognition of the requirements of being outside of the school day. So it's a little bit different, that it's all being allocated to school districts. If districts don't do what's required, they're going to have to pay it back, versus applying for it and, earning it that way. So I just want there's a little bit different, but the intention is do something with this and do it right. So they're giving us the time to be able to actually do it, which is refreshing and awesome.
Mr. Favela, you look like you want to say something.
So I would ask, would that also include weekends or like spring breaks?
Yes,
Well,
yes, it
yeah.
would. Definitely all of the intersessions like spring break or the winter break or the Thanksgiving break. But also we talked about like Saturday schools or Saturday, and not in the traditional sense of Saturday school where you might think of it as a punishment, but you could definitely do Saturday offerings. That is within the legislation. Yep.
Nice. That's great.
I think this position is going to be the best and the worst of positions because the scope of the job is phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's a lot. And that's the exciting part of it, but boy, implementation is going to be kind of interesting. I'm especially excited about the intercession and summer school part of this because I think about working families who can't take time off. And, if they've got a week where they can't be off from work, their kids are home alone. And this is such a fabulous way for them to be spending time in a non-traditional, non-academic way. So I can't believe the amount of money that they're pouring into this program. It's phenomenal. It's a game changer.
It is.
It really is. It's a game changer.
Well, and also too, Mrs. And remember, it's also, it includes obviously all the partnerships and people that we can pay to bring in to help us. But we also have a beautiful transportation system already. It can pay for the busing for that. We could decide at one point, we want a dedicated room at a school or multiple schools that would have just expanded learning opportunities program in it. And it could pay for a portable that we wanted to put down to create an actual space to do it. I mean, there's just what you said, Mrs. Lundeen, is so true. This will be drinking from a fire hose, it feels like.
Yeah.
And it'll be really important for us to manage our exuberance because, you don't want to do too many things too fast. We want to be thoughtful, obviously, have a ramp up and add on and add on and add on. But the worst thing that can happen, as you know, is that it gets away from you. So like everything we do, it'll be thoughtful, stepped out, thought through in a sequential way that allows us to be successful in the long term, if that makes sense.
That's really good to hear. I wonder too, if it gives us, we were talking earlier about expanding opportunities with community partnerships. The Fallbrook Arts Association has this phenomenal, teaching program. I would think that there is perhaps, opportunities for ceramic, stained glass, and it would be a great win-win to really create some strong ties within the Fallbrook community.
Well, and financially invest in our community partners.
Yes.
That's the other part of it, right? Because their ability to then, they charge fees for us to do that. It actually helps. And it's a financial infusion into people in our community, which is also such a huge win-win as well.
There's that old Mission Theater I've never even been in it. And I know we have our own, performing arts spaces, but who knows, there might be something there that, because if we're going to have a drama group and performances, theater groups, it might get more people from the community to actually come and see our kids if it's not on a school campus.
We used to do a lot of that. Remember everybody years ago?
Really?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. The CAST program and our kids involved in CAST, and and many performances in that space. So there's so much here. There's so much here. Yeah.
Mrs. Lundeen, I have DVDs of every one of my children's performances at that theater. If you
That's right.
Blast from the past.
That's great. I'd like to see one time. That sounds fun.
Oh, there's so many memories in that space, but we could figure out how to bring that back to life again. So yeah, so great.
Wow. Okay. So what do you need from us right now? We need
so nothing
information only,
me,
right?
But it's down in the human resources,
consent
it's the
agenda.
first reading of the position.
Yeah, just the first reading of the job description. So there's no action tonight for this. We just wanted you to give you an inside look into where we're headed. And there's going to be lots of opportunity. We'll continue to come back to you as our governing board to provide updates and where we are. I would anticipate my goal is to bring a name of the director to our next meeting. So that's why we wanted the first reading of the job description tonight. It'll be listed as a draft in the job posting. If in the next 2 weeks you have anything you'd like us to do or modify that job description, we would love that feedback. It's pretty, I think it's pretty thorough. It looks nice. It looks really solid. Lots of really exciting opportunities in the job description. And then we'll have the final approval of the description, but I anticipate bringing the selection of the director to you by our next meeting as well, because we got to get going. Yeah.
Wow.
So no action tonight, though.
Great. Very exciting.
It is. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All righty, that takes us to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Favela. Any comments, questions? Or are we ready for a vote?
I wanted to say thank you to the All Air Committee for soliciting donations. There's several very nice donations for All Air, and it's such a great program. So I appreciate their hard work on that.
Yeah, good idea. Good point. All right, let's have a vote. Mrs. Liebes,
Aye.
Mr. Favela,
Aye.
Mrs. Lieber. You have to unmute. We can't hear you.
Aye.
Thank you. And I vote aye as well. Motion carries. Consent agenda is approved. Anything in the future agenda items for consideration? Okay, well, with that, our meeting is adjourned at 7:27 p.m. Thank you, everyone. This was a terrific meeting.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night tonight. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Everybody.